Hendrix plays the Beatles, Sgt. Pepper's, Day Tripper, and Tomorrow Never Knows. Who invented rock and roll? Ask Chuck Berry, and he'll tell you it was him. Or maybe it was Bill Haley, Jerry Lee Lewis, Little Richard, Muddy Waters, or Robert Johnson. Some might even say Lead Belly. In reality, rock and roll wasn't born from one lone genius, but rather from a fusion of blues, country, gospel, and jazz musicians, both famous and forgotten, who shared, borrowed, and reshaped musical ideas. But who revived rock and roll? The Beatles, the Rolling Stones? If you ask me, not that you did. It was one man, Jimi Hendrix. Hendrix had everything, swagger, style, and an unmatched ability to blend blues, rock, and psychedelic sounds. Like the pioneers of the 50s, he also covered his contemporaries. One of his most famous covers was the Beatles' Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band. Mere days after the album's release, in 1967, Hendrix, along with Noel Redding and Mitch Mitchell, opened a show with his own electrifying version. Paul McCartney later recalled how honoured the Beatles felt, calling it one of the greatest tributes to their music. Hendrix also put his own spin on Day Tripper, recorded during BBC radio sessions and later released on BBC Sessions. His version was fuzzed out, explosive, and pure rock and roll energy. Then there's Tomorrow Never Knows, or at least something loosely inspired by it. In a chaotic jam session at the Scene Club in New York in 1968, Hendrix played alongside an intoxicated Jim Morrison, who mostly contributed slurred moans. This raw session, featuring musicians like Buddy Miles, Harvey Brooks, and possibly Johnny Winter, was later bootlegged under names like Bleeding Heart, Sky High, and Woke Up This Morning and Found Myself Dead. After Hendrix's era, rock and roll had little choice but to either strip itself down to punk's raw energy or explore the outer edges of psychedelic noise and fusion. Perhaps Don McLean should have written a